I didn't realize that I was walking around my whole life in a completely acidic state. I didn't realize that, all day long you're just bombarded with EMFs, radiation, you're sitting in front of a computer screen or the lights or your phone.
Our next guest has been listed in Tony Robbins' book, Life Force, as the wellness expert to the stars. He's the owner of Beverly Hills Rejuvenation Center, a champion stock car racer, a fitness guru, as well as Tony Robbins himself and this man have opened Regenerative Health System's 48-unit EESystem in Summerlin, Las Vegas, Nevada. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Holtz, very fantastic individual with a lot of really great knowledge base from wellness on into racing to building biceps. You have quite the story. I want to start with your race car driving. That's really fascinating. I know beating yourself up there kind of led you into finding rejuvenation technologies and different ways to, repair and stay young. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so really it was a combination of just age, wear and tear from weight training, of course, stock car racing, just lots of activity over the years. I started having a lot of problems with health. For one thing, when you stress the body a great deal, okay, so stress, well, the body is so overstimulated, the body seeks balance and it tries to destimulate itself. It says, well, man, I'm so overstimulated all the time, I have to seek balance by reducing the production of stimulants, right? So think about that, right? So I developed hormone deficiencies, right? I didn't know that that's what would happen. Like if you drank a lot of caffeine, you'd get completely hyperstimulated, same way.
Totally.
The body would reduce the production of hormones. It just says, well, I'm not designed to be completely hyperstimulated all the time. Therefore, seeking balance, I'll reduce the production of stimulants. So body's always looking for balance. If you take it out into the sun a lot, it'll darken the skin, right? Hot room, it'll sweat. Cold room, it'll shiver. So I kind of started figuring all this stuff out. That was the way I started fixing the hormone imbalances. And then, of course, I realized that this problem is everywhere. Everybody needs this kind of help. So that's when I started the Beverly Hills Rejuvenation Center with my partner, Devin Heyman. And we started helping people. But as much as that helped, and it did, it was so helpful. It helped me in everything I did. But as the years went along, the aches and the pains and the inflammation it was just bad. And I literally got to the point where when I was in the race car racing, there was a time here racing in Las Vegas where my left shoulder froze. I couldn't even move it. So I'm in the middle of the race, racing with one arm. And it was just so brutal. At the end of the race, I couldn't get out of the race car. I had to have guys pull me out of the car because I couldn't move my left arm.
Sounds dangerous.
It was terrible. And I started just thinking, I got the hormones really good. I got a lot of things good. But, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. Shoulder replacement was, of course, what was recommended to me. And I thought, man, I don't want to do that because then your weight training's done, everything's done. And I just hoped and dreamed that there was going to be something out there that I could find that would help me so that I could get back to functioning in my life again. A buddy of mine called me up and asked me, he said, have you ever heard of this thing called the EESystem? And I said, no, what is it? And he told me, well, it's these computers, you go in this room, these TV screens and these computers, and they generate this frequency and this photon, and it reduces inflammation a lot and heals people and regenerates nerves and all these things. And I said, you know what? I said, I actually think I did hear about this years ago. We had a medical director up here in Las Vegas when we opened our med spas here, and he brought it up to me. He said, I heard about this technology, and he said, I looked into it, and he said, Dan, you gotta learn about this stuff. He said, this woman created the most amazing technology, and he said, I really don't understand it, but he said, I highly recommend that you look into it. And he said, it's called the EESystem, And, I just don't know why, but I just was so busy at the time. I never got around looking into it. But the second this other buddy brought it up, like 5 years later, I knew that's what he was talking about. And I said, you know what? I have heard about it now. I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go in and check it out. He was going in with it's actually Dean Cain's brother, Roger, right? So Superman is Dean Cain, his brother, Roger, a good friend of mine. And so his dad has Parkinson's. So he was taking his dad. So I said, well, call me and tell me how it goes. So he did. He called me up and said, Dan, I can't even believe. He said, my dad was literally, we went in, he could hardly walk. When we came out, we stood in front of the building. He started skipping. He was so happy. Like he felt so good. He couldn't even believe it after like 2 or 3 hours they were in there. And he said, man, you got to go. I was so excited. And I thought, oh, wow, this is crazy. I can't wait to go. So I made an appointment right away to go. I went to a 24-screen system and I went in for 3 hours. I didn't know how many hours to go, but I said, I'd start with 3. I laid down and I thought, man, this just seems really strange. I just don't know if I buy into this. I'm looking at a bunch of computer screens with weird messaging going across, and I didn't really feel anything. And I just thought, I just don't know about this. I really have my doubts. But I kind of forgot how much my medical director had told me, oh my God, it's life-changing. And I wasn't really thinking about that. So I left after 3 hours, and I hate to say it, but I really didn't experience much of a change. And I thought, well, that's the end of that. So I went home and I thought, well, maybe it did something to me that was good, but I can't really say that it changed the way I felt much in terms of my shoulder pain or anything. And that's what I was really after, is I wanted to get rid of some pain. So my buddy called me that night and said, how'd it go? And I said, well, I just really didn't experience much. And he said, go back. And I said, really? I said, 3 hours, really nothing? He said, dude, 3 hours is nothing. Go back. He goes, your shoulders are so bad. You're not going to, in 3 hours, you're not going to change everything in 3 hours. Give it a shot. And I went, you're right. I didn't have any options. What the hell else was I going to do? I had nothing else that I could think of. I mean, what am I going to do? Take 6 ibuprofen a day? Or, you can't.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just living with brutal pain. I mean, I couldn't even hardly move my arms, So I thought, what do I got to lose? So I went back then, so not the next day, but the day after for 6 hours. I went in, said, all right, I'm going to give her a good shot. We'll double up on the hours and we'll see what happens. Hopefully there'll be a change. I actually fell asleep after about 45 minutes in that room. I woke up 6 hours later with, not only did I not have any shoulder pain, I never had any pain in my entire body. I was in shock. I got up and stood up and I thought, what just happened? I was so shocked. Like I hadn't felt that feeling of being pain-free in my body for over 15 years. So it was the most beautiful moment. And I just sat there thinking, what in the hell? It's just happened. I literally took a nap inside this room and it changed my whole life. And then I went, okay, now game on. I got to find out about this. I got to learn about this. I got to meet the person that developed this. I got to go on a mission here, learning more. So that's when I started reaching out to people. Do you know this woman that invented this? And I was doing everything I could to get to your mom, and get connected. And finally, sure enough, after a couple of weeks, I ended up with a phone number and I was able to reach out to her. And next thing you know, I meet you, your sister, your mom, and we all hit it off great. And I was just so excited because, man, this gave me my life back. It gave me a way to start living without pain and feeling good. And I just really, not only was I out of pain, but man, I felt amazing. So, I didn't realize that I was walking around my whole life in a completely acidic state. I didn't realize that, all day long, you're just bombarded with EMFs, radiation. Yet you're sitting in front of a computer screen or the lights or your phone. So I realized here was this guy that was all obsessed with longevity and all this stuff. I missed the boat. Hell, I just thought fix your hormones and maybe do some stem cells or something and do what you could. Literally, I had no idea that I was missing the entire boat. I mean, those were good things to do. I started really learning more and more, and I started doing all the detox baths, and I used to have loads of heavy metals. It detoxed so much out of my body doing the salt baths and that. When I would leave the system, I'd go home and I would do the salt baths, and it just took my health to a whole nother level. And I just started realizing that, man, I can't live without this. There's no chance I can live without this. I not only can't live without this because my whole thing was longevity, health, vitality. I said, I got to have my own center. Like, I got to have a place where I can bring people that need this. This has got to be everywhere. I thought this is going to be the biggest thing going. I mean, because when people find out, I thought they're going to be blown away. When people really, that's when I called Tony Robbins up and I said, Tony, I said, dude, I have found we're good buddies. And I, anytime I find something new, of course, I call him and just tell him. And I told him about this technology, and he had already kind of been exposed to it down in Australia and for a very brief time. And he said, I'm going to try it. And so he went, after I told him that night, he went to a place down in Boca Raton, and he slept in there for 6 hours. And he called me the next day and he said, Dan, I can't even believe I'm the same human being I was 6 hours ago. He goes, my lower back was killing me. He goes, I go into that center down there, and he goes, I sleep for 6 hours, some of the best sleep I've ever had. And he goes, I come out of there, he goes, I don't have a pain in my whole body, just like you. And he goes, we've got to get this technology. He said, I'm going to get a hold of these people. And he goes, I'm going to order the technology. I'm going to put it in the house. I'm going to put it in my office. And I go, Tony, we got to do something better than that. We got to put a center together, a big space where a lot of people can come and heal. We got to get this out there so that people, this is literally going to change lives like you can't imagine. And we got to do something here. We got to create a big place where people can go to get their bodies corrected, their health corrected. I said, I don't even know. I can't live with myself if I don't get a center opened up where people can go. We got to provide this for people and make it affordable to the point where they can go in and have this healing experience and start to really know what health is.
Yeah, and so that set you on your path to literally build one of the biggest systems at the time, a 48 unit. There's people that have since gone on to build bigger units all the way up to 108 units in Liechtenstein. Yeah. But 48 is, I believe, the biggest size system in the U.S. currently. I could be wrong, but
there's a few of them. There's like 3 or 4 48 systems.
You're definitely one of the flagship EESystems.
Yeah.
So if anyone's in Nevada, come to Summerlin, check out his system. So you more recently, you had some more pain stuff come up, and it wasn't fixing in the 24s, but the 48, I believe I forget what it was. It was more recently, and you started spending the night in your own system, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing about anything is healing doesn't happen instantly. It takes some time, right? Mm-hmm. Just like the first time I went in for 3 hours, I didn't really notice much of anything. But then thank God I went back those 6 hours and it changed my whole life. So the EESystem, it isn't magic where you walk in and your whole body is transformed instantly. You have to log in some hours. You have to get that body in an alkalized state. Takes about an hour, at least I believe,
just to settle in,
to get the body alkalized. And then that's when the healing starts happening. As your mom puts it, it unwraps the DNA and the body gets into the state where it can regenerate nerves and literally heal, so many things that it just starts, it puts that body in a state, in an environment that it needs to be in to heal. So you've got to log in some hours, you got to put some time in there. So I just noticed that the more time I put in, the better everything gets. That's the bottom line. The more time you leave that body in an alkalized state, the better every single thing in your body gets. We literally should live in this technology. We should.
That's why it's so popular to put it at homes. But no, to your point, like people think I'll go to the gym and lose 10 pounds overnight. It's repetitive.
That's right.
Clocking cumulative hours. You want your bicep to be bigger. You go out and you work out your bicep on a routine. People think that they can go somewhere and get this quick fix, but if it took you 30 years to get to a negative state, it's not going to take overnight to get to a positive state. Although apparently miracles do happen. Apparently you clocked 9 hours and a miracle happened, which is amazing.
Well, you see it. Like I see things happen in my center. Like I'm telling people, well, you got to log in some hours, you got to do this, and then I see something happen so fast. I'm like, wow. That's pretty crazy, like where you see a healing occur. Like I saw, one lady walks in and she was just completely skeptical. Her granddaughter had told her about it. She came in there just very negative and very, just like, I don't know about this, And she goes in and I started kind of talking to her about it. She's like, yeah, you get out of here. You're trying to sell me on this, which maybe I did sound like I was a little bit. I didn't mean to. But she goes in there. 2 hours later, she comes out. She walks up to me and she goes, you want to know something? I just got up out of that recliner. And she goes, I have not been able to even bend my right knee for like 12 years. It's been locked up. I haven't even been. She goes, my knee is moving like I've never had a problem in it ever. And she goes, this is absolutely crazy. How's this possible? And then her brother, who she had brought, he had a finger that was locked up, hadn't moved in like, I don't know how long. It was like a trigger finger. I don't know what you call it, but locked up. It wouldn't move. His finger was moving like he never had an injury in it. And both of them, that happened in 2 hours. And they were like, wow, this really works. So the woman, wealthy woman, she literally bought memberships for her whole family right there. She said, I'm going to buy it for everybody. And of course, then, they started coming regularly and just doing a couple hours a day. And of course, their lives changed. So this is what you see. You just see transformations, you see people come in there with some pretty serious diseases without getting too technical. And you see them heal and you go, wow, like if only people knew, right?
We can't say a lot of things and we just call them miracles, but it's wild. The stories I've gotten over the years, and I'll get on Facebook and be like, I just got this story. And then I'm like, oh, I'll get in trouble if I post this. I'm just going to delete it. And it's just repeatedly like that. I get calls all the time. And I'm just like, that's so amazing. I'm like, I literally, as the owner of the company, I can't say it.
Yeah.
Other people can go out there on the internet and say all these things, and that's great. And I encourage people to do that. But people are like, well, what does it do exactly? I'm like, it does amazing things, but I can't tell you that it's going to do anything to you. I can just say it can only help.
Yeah. So understanding that we need the body in a state of, so there's a lot of factors. As we age, of course, hormone decline is a reality. Age-related decline. Of course it's a factor. It's a huge factor. But then why is it that I can go do blood work on just about every 20-year-old I know and I see the same hormone deficiencies I see in 40-year-olds? Because it's way beyond that. So there's age-related decline, which is a real thing, and then there's stress-related decline.
Yeah.
So like I said, the body seeks balance. If it gets overheated, it's got to figure out a way to cool itself. It starts pushing moisture out of the pores. We call it sweat, right? And it's trying to seek balance. If it's too cold, it creates heat by making the muscles quiver back and forth. We call it shiver. So it makes its own heat. A lot more light darkens the skin to try to protect itself from the light. So hormonal imbalances, when you look at these young guys and you say, how can this guy have a testosterone level of 250? Well, it's very simple. They're doing energy drinks all day or caffeine, so they hyperstimulate the body so much that the body says, I've got to seek balance by reducing the production of stimulants because I'm too damn stimulated. I'm not designed to be this hyperstimulated all the time. So you kind of wipe out your own hormones by doing all these energy drinks and all the caffeine and all the running and all the, stress. When you overstress, the body's going to find a way to de-stimulate. So for young people, I would just say, man, if you want to have healthy, youthful hormones, I would say absolutely get your body in a state of alkalinity as often as you can, the EESystem.
And those energy drinks are highly acidic.
Oh my, you are so right. Like crazy acidic.
Like rot your teeth acidic.
Exactly right. And just get rid of all the energy drinks, the caffeine, all that stuff, It's a short-term gain and a long-term loss. It never works. It'll give you energy right now to do this particular task, but you're going to pay the price for it because your body will try to downregulate itself and de-stimulate itself, and you just won't have any production of hormones. So that's a big factor, you got to treat the body right. It can take moderate stress, but if it gets too much, you're just going to wipe out all your hormones.
Yeah, that's a great bit of information for general public. Less caffeine, especially energy drinks.
Yeah.
Maybe meditate a little and de-stress. Obviously get in the EESystem, but we don't want to circle around that boat all day.
Yeah, a lot of kids we get people that come into Beverly Hills Rejuvenation Center when they're young and they want to go on a hormone program. I just say, look, you're causing this. I had a guy that had literally no testosterone. He was drinking, he heard that green tea was good for him. And I said, well, okay, yeah. And I said, how much green tea are you drinking? He said, like 15 a day. I said, there's your problem. And he goes, what? And I said, look, 1 cup, okay. 15? No. Got him off the green tea. 30 days later, hormones look like a whole new human being. You know what I mean? Because too much stimulant. Again, you know what I mean? He didn't understand, but you just got to understand that with everything in life, it takes balance. And there's, it's just like hydration. You can kill yourself drinking too much water.
You can literally strip the minerals.
That's right. Once you know that, there's a reasonable amount of water that a person should consume daily. If you're out in 110 degree weather, that's of course more than it would normally be. You not only need more water, you need more salt, right?
Yeah, you need the mineral content. Yeah, we're not just water. It's a host of other potassium, magnesium, calcium, these things all come from mineral content. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So, we had a discussion a while back about peptides, and we talked about BPC 157 and how you were allergic to it, which was really interesting. I was trying it at a certain point. I had a tear in one of my muscles, and you were recommending this new thing you're working with, and I figured, I'd try it. It actually, it was a tricep, bicep, shoulder tank right in the worst place. Literally couldn't even do a curl for like 3 months. I actually tried what you were offering. We'll have you talk about that. And 2 days later, I was back to doing curls. So I'd love to dive into the future of medicine, especially with the peptides. What exactly was it that you that turned me on to?
So, boy, it's a very exciting time because this product is called Cell Revita, and we carry it at Beverly Hills Rejuvenation Center. And what it is the first 18 years that you're on this planet, your body is in its developing mode, right? You're growing into being a full-size human being. Well, you've got a bunch of cells, a bunch of stem cells, you got a bunch of exosomes, you got a bunch of all these growth factors that are developing your body, right? But there's this specific group of cell factors. I call it a messaging protein. It's an array of certain proteins that's a correct messaging that tells the stem cells what to do. Once your body becomes fully developed at about age 18, that messaging drops off to almost nothing because our work here is done. Yeah. That body is developed. There's really no major need for all this messaging anymore because, there's the house is built, right? You're not going to just stand out in the yard putting more paint on, right? Or pounding more nails in it. It's finished. So the same thing happens here, and that messaging protein goes away. It turns down to the point where you actually start your process of degeneration. Okay? So literally by age 19, you have degenerated some. A little bit of wear on the cartilage, a little bit of wear on the tendons. Depending on how hard you're abusing the body, the harder you abuse it, the more rapidly you wear and tear on the joints, and everything wears out, right? So these geniuses, they're just amazing people. They've good friends, and matter of fact, business partners in Beverly Hills Rejuvenation Center. Sanjeev developed these cell factors and figured out that we can now recreate that same exact messaging protein that we had back in our bloodstream in our youth. And what it does, so the system that built you the first time, you still have all these stem cells waiting to be told what to do, no matter how old you are. What you find out is that everybody's been led to believe we needed more stem cells. We really need more messaging. And then you say, well, exosomes are messaging, right? Well, yes and no. Exosomes are like big balloons of cell factors, but they're not necessarily the correct cell factors. In some cases, there's enough cell factors in that may actually produce a result. To say it never works would be untrue. To say that stem cells never work would be untrue. But if you get the right cell factors, you produce the result you want. So we really don't need more exosomes. We really don't need more stem cells. We need the correct messaging, which is, of course, this messaging protein, the specific cell factors that turn our regenerative system back on, so the system that made you the first time can start making you once again. So we literally can stick it into joints, like a shoulder that's damaged severely. Every 30 days, 4 treatments, putting the product in, and we can show some pretty dramatic changes. I mean, we literally can rebuild joints. When you combine the cell factors or the cell Revita with the EESystem, the miracles that you see are shocking. And I mean, I could go on and on and on telling you stories about people. I mean, you did miracles that you just cannot believe. It also regenerates all these natural killer cells that you had in your youth. When you turn this regenerative system back on with these cell factors, that whole natural killer cell part of you starts coming back. So your ability to fight certain diseases, you can use your imagination, goes way up as well.
Yeah, no, it's really fascinating because it seems like you've kind of gone past all the past iterations of anti-aging injectables and have this new thing. And I wanted to touch on, you actually brought up how with stem cells, there's actually some negative side effects that have been noted over the years as far as, I think, autoimmune diseases or stuff. Maybe you can touch on why some of the old models might not be working as well. Explain that.
Because of the DNA. When you put foreign DNA, if I put someone else's DNA into my body, my chance for autoimmune disease goes through the roof.
Wow.
Even so, that's with stem cells, with exosomes. Anyway, there's no DNA in this messaging protein. These cell factors, there's no DNA. It's just the exact, it's the communication needed to get your own stem cells and exosome back to doing what they're supposed to do. So that messaging is really all we ever needed and all we need to heal the body. I went down to Dallas last week. I've been telling this guy, I got a buddy of mine owns about 9 stores, the Beverly Hills Rejuvenation Centers down in Dallas. And I've been telling him about Cell Revita for a year and a half. And he was so skeptical and he said, I don't know. Because he said, well, yeah, I don't know. And he just was, he had dabbled with stem cells and got no results like most people, right? 1 out of 5 people gets a result. And by the way, the only reason they got that result is they just so happened to get enough of the cell factors that they needed to get the right messaging to get a result. You never needed more stem cells. You needed the cell factors. That's all you needed in the first place. So they think the stem cells really did the work. You really didn't need the stem cells. You got enough cell factor to create the change that you needed. Anyway, so I'm telling this guy, you got to do this. He called me up and said, he was actually kind of pissed. He said, why didn't you push me harder to get on this damn stuff? He goes, Dan, I can't believe it. He said, I went to the gym. He said, I was 20% stronger right off the bat. He said, my endurance, everything skyrocketed. He said, my inflammation dropped to a place where I can't even believe. We are at a point now where, I mean, thank God for this technology. And then, you take this product, you go in the EESystem, and you start literally aging backwards, in my opinion, in a dramatic way. You can even inject it into the scalp and regrow hair. It's pretty crazy.
That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I obviously very skeptical, but also strong believer in the kitchen sink philosophy of wellness, to throw everything you can at anti-aging. I think preventative medicine is extremely undervalued and underutilized. I imagine this it probably keep people from getting sick, which is amazing. But I'll tell my story. Is I literally couldn't move my left arm as far as so I was GIMP for about 3 months, and I just kind of got sick of it. Slowly started to regenerate. I tried some of the other peptides, almost no result. And I was like, I saw I think a 3-hour presentation at your center about the peptides. I'm like, all right, well, let's give it a shot. Literally 2 days after putting in, I had 50% less pain. It's still a small twinge right now, but I'm back to lifting everything how I was before. And my PRs increased. So I actually did get an increase in my weightlifting capability. So I was really excited about it. And I like to tell people about things I'm using. I don't want to pimp people's product without actually endorsing it. So I'm really happy that you turned me on to that, and hopefully other people will get interested in it.
And we see body fat going down in people a lot with it too. Yeah. It's pretty shocking. It's like it just turns that metabolism back up, and so many things. It's just across the board, like shocking, all of the things that it does. Like, you talk about the peptides. They're nothing compared to what this is. I mean, this is like, if you think BP 157 is good, like, wow, wait till you get a hold of Cell Revita. And, it's just a whole different level of healing and repair. And,
No, I'm all about the cutting edge stuff.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating to watch science progress, especially in like stem cells, because everyone's like PRP, then use umbilical cord and exosomes, and they're jumping all over these topics, and it's the whatever hype market. And eventually, after enough research, people start to dial in where things actually should be. It seems like you may have actually found that. It's really fascinating. Where do you think the future of modern healthcare is going right now? Do you think it's going to stick to a pharmaceutical model? Do you think we're going to go more towards energy medicine? Think these kind of technologies are going to be the forefront? Where do you envision or hope maybe that the wellness sector will go next?
The very two things that we just talked about. The EESystem and this Cell Revita product are literally the two top things in the world that you could do today to regenerate your health and vitality. There's nothing that can even come close to either one of those two technologies. There's nothing that even has any comparison. The trips to Panama are over. You don't need that anymore. When we got medical professionals right here that can put this product in you, you've got all the stem cells you need. You can rebuild, repair, regenerate your body. You get in that EESystem after you get this product put in your body, this Cell Revita, you get in that EESystem and you will see things happen with your health that will shock you. You will start to understand if you really start doing your homework.
Okay, so for those maybe who is inaccessible to the technology and the Cell Revita, let's aside from not drinking caffeinated beverages, which could be a huge thing, are there any other day-to-day things you could advise the general populace? Let's say they're lower income, inaccessible to a lot of the technologies or medicines that we might have. Maybe they live in the Philippines or India. Like, what are some day-to-day, just easy, cheap fixes that people can do today or tomorrow?
I mean, if that's all you've got, then it's nothing wrong with that. At least you're getting your body out of that city where all of that radiation is at. That'd be at least a good, healthy thing to do. Go on.
That is a dirt cheap
way of go on nice hikes. Make sure there's no power lines where you're going, and go on nice hikes. Take it easy. Don't run a lot. Walk. Okay. Don't stress the body so much. Movement is great. rapid movement is inflammatory. I always tell people, if a car's about ready to run over you, run like hell. And then as soon as you get away from that car, go back to walking, because you don't need more stress. You do not need more hyperstimulation. We need less. Keep the body as calm as possible within reason. Weight training is really healthy for the body, as long as you're not bouncing from this to this to this and you got your heart beating out of your chest so bad that you're stressing the body so bad. But weight training can be a little hard on the joints. But if you're doing the cell revital, of course, you're rebuilding the joints as you grow old. So, I think let's talk about fasting for a moment, okay?
Oh, I love this one.
So fasting, everybody's got to fast. Okay, well, all right. So is there any plus? Of course. There's a plus for everything and a minus for everything. What's the plus? What's the minus for the EESystem? Well, you got to pay for it. Okay? The plus is it'll change your whole life, heal your body, and put you, shock you what it'll do for your health. The minus is you got to spend some money. All right? So about fasting, what's the plus? Well, you could lose some weight, right? Or you could maybe increase your energy for a bit. And here's the reality about fasting. So to say there's no pluses, that would be wrong. What's the minus? Well, let's just say that you and I, Michael, ran out of gas out in the middle of the desert, and we didn't plan properly. We forgot to fill up, and now we're stuck, and there's no cars coming, and you and I got to walk, and we're just kind of in that situation, and we don't happen to have any food. The fact that our body can convert itself back to food, like by breaking tissue down, be a pretty damn good thing for you and I, being that we were stuck out in there and we would have died without our body's ability to convert itself back to fuel, right? Yeah. So the fact that your body is able to break its tissue down and turn itself back into fuel is a very great thing. But really, should you just do it all the time? And is it a healthy thing to do? Let's talk about that for a minute. So we talked about the plus, right? The plus is we didn't die when we ran out of gas in the desert. The minus is we now taught our body that food is scarce, because the body said, Michael, Dan, it's time to eat. We did not eat. So our glucose level was starting to get dangerously low. So the first thing that started happening is our hands and feet started getting cold, and we started getting kind of lethargic and kind of low energy, and we were getting kind of sleepy, and then all of a sudden it kind of shifted. And then all of a sudden we got kind of hot and sweaty and hyperstimulated. Our hands started shaking, and we got almost kind of full of energy. Well, yes, because the body decided, okay, since food isn't available, we got to convert the tissue back to food. So we're going to push this epinephrine into that cell over there. That will create cellular inflammation. Now, cortisol that's floating by says, well, I'm cortisol and I'm attracted to inflammation, so I'm going to go into that cell. Well, cortisol happens to be catabolic. So now cortisol catabolizes that tissue, and next thing you know, your glucose is going up. So all of a sudden, look at that. We're able to survive. We're able to keep going. And we actually have maybe more energy than we had a little bit ago, right? When our body was slowing itself down before it shifted to catabolization, right? So now you think about this and you go, well, what's wrong with that? Well, when you taught the body that food was scarce, you also taught the body that it cannot afford to have a rapid metabolism. No way ever. So now it's got to start pushing thyroid function down. So it takes the stored thyroid hormone that's floating around in your body called T4, converts it to reverse T3, and stops the absorption of T3, which is the stimulant that's our thyroid that makes our body function. So now you're not absorbing thyroid anymore. So now the thyroid hormone starts piling up in the bloodstream, and the brain says, oh, look at that. We don't need to make so much thyroid anymore. We'll tune down the thyroid gland to slow down the production of thyroid hormone, because we have an abundance of thyroid hormone building up in the bloodstream. So now you've just created thyroid dysfunction in your body. So now you go, well, I don't know, I'm still losing some weight. Well, yeah, but here's the problem. You've now caused yourself thyroid dysfunction, and now you don't have enough thyroid hormone at a certain point to make your cardiovascular system function. So now, if the thyroid disorder gets bad enough because you're fasting long enough, now the body has to start using epinephrine to make the heart beat instead of thyroid. So now you've got a highly inflammatory hormone that your body is utilizing for its cardiovascular system, and you've got inflammation out of control in your body like you've never seen before. So I would suggest that if you teach the body that food is plentiful, that would be wiser than to teach the body that food is scarce. What if you taught the body that it could afford to have a rapid metabolism? Wouldn't that be interesting? What if you put, like if you're a guy, what if you put 125 calories in every hour, and then all of a sudden the body said, well, look at that. This guy's in a place where food is abundant. He can afford to have lots of body temperature, energy, strength, stamina, and a rapid metabolism because food is everywhere. I mean, this guy's never getting low glucose. He's just all set, right? So believe it or not, now, does that mean I could overeat? No. It means that if I did small, frequent feedings, I would start to teach my body that it had no problem gaining access to food, so it would speed the metabolism up, and all of a sudden I've got way more energy, way more strength, more stamina, everything. So these are the kind of things that at Beverly Hills Rejuvenation Center we try to teach people, is that there's good, healthy ways to restore the body to functioning rather than fasting. Of course, fasting, when you need it in an emergency situation, it's great that it can do it. I would never do it regularly or long term. And some people say there's benefits with cancer in that. There may be. So I'm saying, again, there may be a plus in that situation. I don't have enough scientific background to know how beneficial it would be in a state where your body has cancer. It may be highly beneficial, but I do know that in the long haul, it's not the path you want to be on.
No, and I'm a symptom of that too, because between work and everything, I wouldn't eat. And people are like, how are you overweight? You barely eat anything. And then you broke that down to me exactly what you just said. I basically taught my body that food was scarce.
That's
so
right.
It holds on to fat. And I was just like, boom, mind blown. I'm like, oh my God, that makes complete sense. Yeah. So this whole intermittent fasting thing, I wake up, have coffee, and then I don't eat till the evening. That's sometimes. Right. I literally train my body that you're going to just gain weight because we need you to have that stored fat for later.
Oh, yeah. My sister calls me and she says, Dan, I got a big problem. I said, what's your problem? She said, I'm swollen all over my body. And I go, what do you mean? She says, my hands, my feet, my body, I'm just bloated like I can't even believe. And I said, well, you're holding a bunch of fluid. I go, what have you done lately? And she said, well, I just flew to Colorado and back to see my daughter. And I said, you taught your body that water was scarce. And she goes, what? And I go, you went to high altitude, didn't increase your water intake, and you taught your body that water was scarce. So now your body is holding fluid because it didn't have access to enough of it. And she goes, what? And I said, start drinking a whole bunch of water right now, and you'll get worse. But by tomorrow, you'll be back to being about like you were today. And then the day after that, all your water's going to be gone. And she goes, you're kidding me. And I said, just trust me, start drinking a bunch of water. So that day, she started drinking water. She called me later, said, I'm worse. And I said, of course. I said, now tomorrow you'll be about as bad as you were earlier today, which of course she was. The next day she called me and said, I don't think I've ever had less fluid retention in my life than I have right now. And she said, because I kept drinking more water. Well, of course, if water is plentiful, why would the body hold on to it? If small amounts of water are coming in regularly throughout the day, there's absolutely no reason to have fluid retention. The body doesn't need to retain it. It's got plenty because it's got access regularly to water. You see what I'm saying? There's no reason to retain the fluid.
Yeah, and to your point, you do really want to drink small amounts continuously, not just chug a gallon.
That's exactly right.
You're just going to flush.
Yeah, and of course, we need that Celtic salt intake. They say, don't bring in the salt. They try to get everybody to stay off salt. You actually need more salt to fix your problems with your blood pressure and all that. So if you're hydrating, the right salt.
Yeah.
If you're hydrating a lot, you got to increase your salt intake too.
Well, they're like, well, you need electrolytes if you're sweating and working. It's like electrolytes are essentially a high grade salt.
Yeah, and of course, I'm not talking about table salt.
Yeah, not iodized salt like Morton's. That's actually the bad salt. But
that's right.
That pink salt, the Himalayan, Celtic, Dead Sea salt, where there's high mineral content, and you've got the good stuff.
That's right. Yep. I actually drink a glass of salt water before bed every night.
Okay, I do magnesium, but
I do too.
Yeah. Salt and magnesium.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because see, when you get that salt level up right before sleep, then it pushes all that fluid into those cells. It hydrates the body really good. And see, because if you're salt deficient and you drink anything late, you're just gonna have to pee it out in 2 hours. So I actually make sure that I get all my cells volumized and hydrated real good at bedtime.
I love giving the viewers the takeaway stuff. So like, are you doing a teaspoon or are you just kind of throwing a pinch in?
I throw a teaspoon. Yeah, a fair amount. Yeah.
Warm water so it breaks down quicker.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. That's great. I love giving people little bits of
it really helps you. You're hydrated good when you sleep and you're not getting up to pee all night long.
I mean, that's always a benefit too. I'd rather sleep through the night than, have to get up 3 times.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
All right, Dan. Well, if people love what you're doing and want to hear more about your products, where do they find you?
They can find me at any Beverly Hills Rejuvenation Center in California or up here in Las Vegas. They can call and get my information there, or Regenerative Health System. They can call there. I'll certainly be available.
Drop the links in the bios.
Yeah.
Are there any fine little words? Let's before we wrap. You're actually kind of a serial entrepreneur. You've done a lot. For other people out there that are running businesses or trying to run businesses, if you could say 1 or 2 things as like, these are the first things that come to mind with how to become successful in business, something along that realm.
Yeah.
Just anything that comes to mind, enlighten our viewers.
Yeah. Well, you're a product of your thoughts. So if you're thinking about your problems, you're in a mess because that's what you're focused on. You'll get what you focus on, right? So right now, of course, Tony Robbins, who says it better than Tony, your life becomes what you focus on. So if you're focusing on problems every day, your life is going to be a big batch of problems. If you're focusing on solutions every day, look, 100 things are going to happen in the next day. Who's to say how should all of them go the way you want them to go? Well, of course not. That's illogical. Certain amount of the things are going to happen in a way that you would really prefer they didn't happen that way, right? But then if you focus on it in a negative way, as if it's a problem, you're just missing the boat. All you got to do is constantly focus on, okay, here this thing came. It's in my life, so obviously it's meant to be here. It came to me and for me. What's the best thing I can do right now to deal with this situation? And just stay positive, stay focused on solutions, not focused on problems. There are no problems. There are only things that come. And we just have to turn it into, okay, it's here. I'll bet in 6 months when I look back on this situation, something really great came out of it because it's meant for me. If it came to me, now I have to start focusing on, okay, what am I here to learn? What do I need to grow? Why is this in my life? And what can I do to just embrace it, work through it, and get to the solution?
Those are extremely wise words.
Well, thank you.
Dan Holtz, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we'll have you back.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
You're a dear friend. And
you too.
I hope everyone comes and checks out his center in Las Vegas and checks out this new Cell Revita. It's fascinating. I'm still new on it, but I'm excited to see where it takes me over the next course of my life because I would like to grow younger, not older.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.